to the Hotel News Now podcast network. I'm Trevor Simpson. The Kansas City Chiefs capped off a magical 2023 season when they defeated the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl in a thrilling 25-22 overtime victory. It was the Chiefs' third Super Bowl in 5 seasons, solidifying the team as a legitimate dynasty. Kansas City's success can be attributed to several different players on the team, such as defensive tackle Chris Jones or MVP quarterback Patrick Mahomes. And, of course, tight end Travis Kelce. While those guys are sure to put fans in the seats, what if I told you that a star who sat in a suite brought fans to the games and the city? There was a significant increase in hotel performance in Kansas City during game weekends this past season, especially after Taylor Swift started appearing at Chiefs games to support Kelce. I'm now going to bring in Colin Sherman, Director of Hospitality Market Analytics in Texas and Tennessee for CoStar Group. Colin, how are you?
Good. How you doing, Trevor?
Doing great. So Colin, we worked on this story together, but I was interested. How did you come across this idea?
I've been following the Swift, I should say the Swifty um, train for a while now since it started. It all started last year when we started seeing the lifts and performance due to her concerts um, from city to city. And so I ended up actually doing a presentation on kind of some of those, well, a few of those lifts, or at least touching on them at HDC last year. And so I've just kind of been following it. And since after the Super Bowl, I wanted to actually see, well, was there lift to Kansas City since she started appearing at the games? And since we had the full data set, the season was complete, I figured it was worth taking a look at.
So when you did take a look at the data, what jumped out at you?
I think what really jumped out was game 3. She appeared first at Arrowhead Stadium in game 2. And then game 3, you saw this pretty significant lift. And then when you compared it to 2022, you can see that game 1 and game 2 attendance, or I should say hotel performance, really wasn't wasn't really different from the previous season. So looking at it, game 3, you saw this huge lift this year versus last year, or at least 2023 versus 2022, and that was most surprising. As I kind of charted the games, game 4 all the way to game 10, omitting game 5 because they were playing in Germany, you can actually see that there was a bit of a lift every game compared to the games in the 2022 season. And so I decided to write on it and actually kind of look and say, hey, this could be a potential of why Kansas City did so well.
Yeah, and it's not like this was a team that hadn't had success in previous years. They won the Super Bowl in 2022. Obviously ended up repeating this year, but when I spoke to some sources on the story, one was kind of buying into the idea that Taylor Swift had an impact, and the other was sort of more against it in a to a certain degree. Like he said, there was a certain buzz in the city, but actual impact on hotel industry performance, maybe not. So what are some other factors that could be impacting the performance growth in Kansas City?
Yeah, the more I looked at it, Kansas City is kind of well, not even kind of, it's a booming town, particularly in the last 5 years. We're seeing a lot more events, a lot of concerts come in. Um, just kind of taking a look at some of those other events that took place on those game days, we saw that Jason Aldean, I think, played at the same time as game 3, so that would have obviously lifted occupancy and hotel performance. But strikingly, as I kind of went down the line and looked at other games, there wasn't a lot going on. I mean, except for the actual KC game. So that prompted me also to kind of say, well, again, I'm not going to say it definitively that Taylor Swift is correlated to KC hotel performance,
Mm-hmm.
but it definitely, I think, in my opinion, had a little bit of it triggered an excitement. And regardless if it was people from coming out of town to maybe get to witness her presence, or even if it was just locals going to their local bar to watch the game with Taylor Swift inspired drinks or food and beverage, there's definitely a buzz.
Yeah, and I'm sure one of the only reasons that it was of consideration was because of who we're talking about when we're talking about Taylor Swift. Joe DeMarco, who's the Senior Vice President of Revenue at Corey Hospitality, which manages the Ambassador Hotel, Kansas City. So he's a season ticket holder for the Chiefs. And he said that fans would flock to her suite like she was the president or Gandhi.
I believe it.
Yeah, so that's the kind of impact we're talking about here. And I know you said you weren't going to give a definitive answer, but do you believe that there was a direct correlation between Swift showing up to the games and the hotel performance?
I don't see how there couldn't be. When you look at the spread of ages that are Taylor Swift fans, you have, ranging from 50 to, 15-year-olds. That spans quite a bit of an age demographic, all flooding into the city. You're also seeing almost a new fan base of Kansas City Chiefs, for the Kansas City Chiefs, I should say, as dads who are probably longtime Chiefs fans are now all of a sudden seeing their daughters, interested in going to a Chiefs game. So I don't see how it couldn't have affected it, or at least um, given a little bit of a boost or rise to hotel performance in Kansas City.
Yeah, and going back to DeMarco, so he said that rates at his property increased 13.5% after or for games that Swift attended. And he was saying the same thing where like you can't necessarily quantify it, but also he would expect, okay, if there were to be a boost, it would be in the, like 4 to 5% range. So that because it is such a high boost, there might be something more to that, and that something more would probably be Taylor Swift showing up to the games.
Yeah, the fact that there were such large, considerable lifts in hotel performance on those particular game days, there's probably a correlation.
You put two and two together, yeah. All right, Colin. Those were all the questions that I had for you. Was there anything that you wanted to add?
No, I think it's a great story. I think it's one to kind of look at as we consider hotel performance for other cities, not necessarily Taylor Swift or Swiftie related, but just kind of what is really driving people to a market and what's giving that performance lift. The why is always the most fascinating part of the story.
Absolutely. Well, Colin, it was fun to work with you on this story, and thanks for jumping on the podcast.
Same, Trevor. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Davon Reed.
I'm Omari Head.
And I'm Chris Henry.
We're the hosts of the Next Gen and Lodging podcast on the Hotel News Now podcast network. It's a monthly show in which we interview a new generation of hoteliers to get their insights into a variety of disciplines and topics, from finance to food and beverage and hotel operations. Listen to us on Spotify, Google, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Thanks for listening. This podcast was recorded on March 7th, 2024, and edited by Trevor Simpson. Go to hotelnewsnow.com for the latest industry news every day.